down there, but I hope you enjoy the message, and we will see you next week. So, all right. I'm glad to see, we watched the video on what's going on with the conference, and they really put a lot of emphasis on the youth, and that's something that I struggled with this week as far as the topic I wanted to speak on. It bothered me because it's not, y'all will kind of see as I go into it there, but it's not something that I actually found in the church, but it's something that shaped my life, and when I look back, I don't see any kids my age that I was raised up with in the church still in the church. They didn't stay in. And that's bothered me over the years, and I've wondered, why that was, and I can't directly answer that question, but they must not be getting what they needed in the church, Now, what I'm going to say is, it may be somewhat controversial. I don't feel like it is because I'm not talking against the church, because the church still has its place and it's still sharing the gospel. But sometimes our ministry reaches outside the church walls, because if we just minister inside of the church, who are we ministering to? And if we're just ministering inside the church, we're not bringing people in the church. And I think we all know that our church is shrinking every day. And how do we reach out to them people outside of the church walls? I mean, if you come up to somebody and you just mention the word Jesus and start talking to them, and you want to tell them about the love of Jesus, what are they going to do? They're going to turn and go the other way. Their ears are turned off. That is a time that is past that we don't have anymore. That part has moved on. If you give them a pamphlet, what do they do with it? They chunk it in the garbage. I mean, our house is full of books, So how do you move forward, and how do you spread the gospel if that's the way we've been doing it? And I even question, is that actually the gospel we're spreading? Because Jesus hasn't come yet, and he said when the gospel reaches the whole world that he would come. And as far as I know, the gospel's reached the whole world, but Jesus hasn't come here. So are we spreading the wrong gospel? I don't know. But anyway, as I was praying a few days ago, and I don't get paid for speaking. I'm a lay pastor or whatever you want to call it. So I see these big evangelists, they get all this money coming to them. And they get up there and they say, give the Lord his money and you shall be healed. But they always give their address to send the check to, So that's kind of funny there. But I got to praying the Lord and said, you've got a lot of money. Maybe a simple, humble servant like myself, you could share a little bit of me. What does money mean to you, God? And he says, nothing, son. I got streets just paved with gold. It don't mean anything to me. I was like, wow, the Lord's actually talking to me. I said, well, Lord, you've got money. I said, I don't have time to go out and spread the gospel the way I want to. And if I had the money, I would have more time to spread the gospel. But time doesn't really mean anything to you. You think you could give me some more time? He said, well, let me think about that. And I said, what does this time mean to you? He said, it don't mean nothing to me. I'm forever, from the beginning to the end. I said, well, if you can't give me time, how about send me a big check? And he wouldn't answer me. And I said, are you going to send me that money? He says, yes, but just wait a minute. It'll be the end of my lifetime before I ever see it. But that's the way it goes, But it's kind of funny. You ever seen a child, the little toddlers, and they want to play hide and go seek? They'll go and they'll hide, and in their mind they're thinking, if you can't see them, if they can't see you, you can't see them, and they're hidden. So they think they're hidden. So when you're a child, you get mixed up concepts of what reality really is, but you don't understand it yet because you haven't lived long enough to know. But as a Christian, should we be known as a Christian? Yes, we should. But how should we be known as a Christian? Let your light shine. Well, how do we let that light shine? Is that through Bible studies? How do we witness that light? How do we shine that light? Because very rarely do you meet an Adventist that you don't know they're an Adventist, because they're going to tell you pretty quick that they're an Adventist. I remember one time I was a young fella, I was looking for a truck. It was an old S10 pickup truck that I went and looked at. 4-wheel drive. I needed one to shoe my horses out of. Needed a work truck. But I went there to look at this truck, and I could tell it was ragged out, and I was speaking to the man that was trying to sell me this truck. And one of the first things he said was, yeah, I'm a preacher. I'm a preacher. But all the stuff he told me at the truck, I'm looking there, it doesn't match up. And he's telling me he's a preacher, and I'm thinking, you're misrepresenting the word here. You're telling me lies and telling me you're a preacher to try to make me believe that this truck is more than what it really is. If you're a Christian, you don't have to tell people. If you're an Adventist and you love Jesus, you don't have to tell people that you love Jesus for people to know that. Because we get up here and we speak the love of Jesus. And it's easy to preach about it, and it stays right here in these walls. But when we go outside of that door there, how do you live the word of Jesus, the gospel? How do you spread that gospel? Because I guarantee, if you go out that door and the first person you meet, you start trying to tell them about Jesus, what are they going to do? They're going to go the other way. They're going to go the other way. But I'm here to tell you, the true love of Jesus, you cannot hide it. But that doesn't mean that you have to get out and proclaim it to everyone you see. You ever thought about being an undercover Christian? When you go out that door, let's live a Christian life. Let's show the love of Jesus in the way we live instead of telling people about it. Let's open up our Bibles to Matthew 5:13 through 16. Ye are the salt of the earth. This is Matthew 5:13. Everybody turn there. So I don't hear any pages turning, and I can't hear the iPads or the iPhones. And I can't get on to anybody about using them, because guess what? I've got my screen right here. I'm doing the same thing. And I've tried to go back, and I've tried. My mind doesn't work that way. And one day, if I lose my phone, I'll have to go back to the original pages. But right now, God has given me the gift of technology, and I use it. And because I do a lot more for Him because of this technology. Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and trodden under foot of men. Now, if we're supposed to be the salt of the earth and the church is shrinking, have we lost its savor? What we have to offer, has it lost its savor? I see some heads shaking, saying no. But I question this. Have we as a church lost its savor to the people outside? I say yes, we have lost its savor. Now, I feel like our church right now, we have got a lot of programs going, and we're pulling together, and we're trying some new out of the box stuff to get the church back going. That's not unbiblical. And I praise Brother Mike for putting some of these on. Andy is putting them on. I'm one of the ones that's doing some of the stuff. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. In 14, it says, you are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. And are we hidden? How many people do you ask about the Adventist church or the Adventists? Do they know us? Some do, some don't. You know, so we can be hidden. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before man that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. So let me ask you this. Pretty much you have your regular life and your church life. And this light that we have in this church, it stays in this church. And then when you leave out of this church, is your light following you? And if you try to shine this light on somebody and you shine it in their eyes, what do? They leave and they go the other way. They leave and they go the other way. So how do we shine this light on somebody that the light hurts their eyes? That's the question we're looking at. Is this spreading the gospel that so seems to be not spreading? How do we spread that gospel? Like Jesus did. But are we actually doing that? It rolls off the tongue so easy to say like Jesus did, but yet a lot of times I don't see that. But this goes back to a simple lack of understanding of a child. You see they're a child and it's so fun to play hide and go seek with them, you know, and they can't hide it, that bubbly funness. If you're a Christian and you leave out of that door, you don't have to tell anybody you're a Christian. If you're living like Jesus, they see that. You don't have to give them a Bible study. And further down, and this is changing gears a little bit. It says, think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but fulfill. Now, this is Jesus talking to the Pharisees here, and he's telling them they're going to fulfill the law. Well, which law is he fulfilling there? Adam and Eve sinned. Adam and Eve sinned, and they were supposed to die. And if you look at Genesis 2:17, this man shall surely die if he eats off of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. But they didn't die, right? Not right then. They died spiritually then, and they drove that nail in their coffin. But we come up with the Old Testament law. What did they sacrifice in the Old Testament? A lamb. And that lamb was to represent who? Jesus. So Jesus died in the place of that law, fulfilling the law that said that somebody had to die if they sinned. You could not live. You can't live without God, because God is the sustainer of life. And when you separate yourself from God, which is sin, you cannot live unless He keeps that life going. That's a living hell, is when you're living and God is keeping you alive and you're in sin. That is a living hell. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no ways pass, for the law to be fulfilled. Now this is something here. Jesus saved us from dying, but you have to understand that not only did he do that when he died, but he done away with sin altogether. Now, we still have sin, and that's going to be eradicated later on. But what he fulfilled was he beat Satan, and he beat death, and he beat sin altogether for us and the whole universe. Then it switches gears there. It says, whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach them, and the same shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Now you got to remember, this is right in front of the Pharisees. The Pharisees were the most godly people at the time, right? Before Jesus come along, they were looked at as the most godly people at the time. Now, I'm going to just ask y'all a question. As an Adventist, have y'all ever looked at yourself as the most truth-keeping church at this time? Answer that honestly. Yes. So we are in grave danger of falling into the same trap that the Pharisees fell in that was talking to Jesus. For I say unto you, this moving on, verse 5:20, for I say unto you that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees. Now this was, you could have reached out and slapped somebody at that time, pow, when he said that. I'm telling y'all, all these righteous people right here that has kept the laws and they've studied it for years and years and years and they've got it down to a science, I'm telling y'all right now, if your righteousness does not exceed their righteousness, you won't make it to heaven. Who around there thought that their righteousness could be better than the scribes and the Pharisees? No one. It couldn't be done. Jesus, that's where he could have reached out there and slapped them when he laid that on the table and said, surprise. Because I'm telling y'all, your righteousness has got to be better than theirs if they want to be saved. Well, that can't be done. Point Jesus was making. The point Jesus was making. Let's see, where was I at right here? The righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees. Ye shall in no case enter into the kingdom of heaven. Nobody around there could be saved. Except how could they be saved? There was only one person there that could do that. And who was that? Jesus. He was the only one there that could provide the righteousness for anyone to be saved. But, to go back, we're going to back up to 19 there, and we're going to go to the verse that just popped up. But whosoever therefore shall break one of the least of these commandments, and shall teach men so. We're going to go back and look at another verse to put this verse simple. We're going to make this verse very simple. And we're going to do that by turning to Matthew 22, 36 through 40. All right. Now I got to catch up with my technology here. I was trying to look at the time to see how far I'm going to keep y'all over. We had a long intermission there and several things going on, so I'm going to try to cut this as short as I can. All right, so we're in Matthew. What's up there? Matthew 22 and verse 36. There it is. So we're looking at the greatest commandment, but Jesus said the least of these commandments, but we're going to look at the greatest of these commandments. Because the greatest commandments, if you miss that, it doesn't matter about the least. We've got to go to the greatest, which should be the hardest, but actually it should be the easiest. Master, which is the greatest commandment in the law? And Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul and with all thy mind. Now that's tough. It was Adam and Eve had trouble with it. They sinned. They didn't love Jesus with all their heart, all their mind, and all their soul. I have trouble with it myself. I love a lot of stuff. But there's still a few things out there that I shouldn't love. And I pray every day to get forgiveness of them things. And I hope that one day I will conquer them. But I know if I follow Jesus, if I'll trust Him when I go to heaven, I will be rid of them. Let's see. All right. And this is the first of the great commandments. And the second is like unto it. And this is the kicker one right here. The one that separates a Christian from anybody else. This is what separates you from the people on the world and the people that are not of the world. And the second, like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. One of these commandments on these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Now see, this is what the scribes and Pharisees had trouble with. See, they could preach all the laws and the gospel, but when it come to actually loving your neighbor, they had trouble with that. They loved themselves. They loved to dress in nice clothing. They loved to go to these parties and do all this stuff, and they love to be looked at. But guess what? When you decide to be an undercover Christian, you're no longer that person. You're not looked at as the chief of whatever foundation that you're trying to set up. You're no longer that person that's head of that. You're just another person trying to help someone else out. It is tough on you to be an undercover Christian because guess what? You get no glory. You get no glory. And when you do become that undercover Christian, you find out that, hey, this guy over here, he is sharing the gospel too. He's doing the same thing I'm doing. I'm trying to help my fellow man. Well, he is too, but he ain't claiming to be anything. Well, how did that happen? He ain't an Adventist. Or he don't even proclaim to be any other religion as far as that goes, but yet he's doing the same thing I am. And you don't get glory over him. Well, is that not a crying shame? Easy how you answer that. Easy how you answer that. Lack of understanding. All right, I'm old school Adventist, and a lot of people in here are probably old school too. Coffee, good or bad? How many says good? Let's see. Who says bad? I got a couple raising bad there. All right, well, when I was younger growing up, if you were a good Adventist, coffee was bad. And I'm not here promoting coffee, but I'm going to tell you a story. Coffee was bad. Coffee was bad. All right, so when we moved to our place, we bought this farm, and we had no idea what deer was, and this was before I was born. But Dad bought this farm, planted soybeans, and as soon as they come up, within a few nights, deer wiped out 100 acres. All right, that's basically going to your bank account and taking out that 100 acres, taking out a third of whatever you had in your savings or was going to make for that year and throwing it in the creek. That's basically what it was. So I know a lot of people feel like deer is pretty and all that, and I love to look at them. I love more stuff than that on deer. But I don't think anybody in here has a problem if a mouse gets in their covert and starts eating on that stuff. They're going to get rid of that mouse. You know, that's the way the deer was at our time when we moved on there. So we leased this property out to deer hunters. And they brought this little old, like a bread wagon truck, and they parked it back here, and that's where they stayed. I was little bitty. Well, anyway, they like to drink coffee. Well, we was out there when they was gone one day, and we're in the bus, and we find, oh, they got coffee in there. That can't be good. They're drinking. That's bad. We need to do something about it. So what do? We get the salt, and we fix their coffee where they can't drink it. We filled it up with salt, too. So they had salted coffee. Nice little bitty fella. But this was the understanding that we had of how we needed to make sure that somebody got right, was we filled their coffee up with salt. Now, was that a Christian thing to do? No, but it was a lack of understanding that we had of the Christianity. Now, how many of y'all think that as an adult, and we go into Christianity, how you share the gospel, that we don't have the same trouble of understanding what is right in front of us is right and wrong? We have the same trouble. We're totally different. That's when Jesus come and he was talking to the Pharisees. Nobody could understand. It was plain right there, but they couldn't see it. All right, we got to move on. We got to move on. Can a fig tree, my brethren, bear olive berries, or either a vine figs? So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh. Now, who in here believes that picture right there is correct? It's not correct, is it? It's not correct. Y'all, I'm telling you, a tree is going to produce the fruit that it's going to produce. It's going to produce the fruit that it's going to produce. And I'm going to tell y'all a sad story. All right. The most influential man on my life, without a doubt, was my dad. No question whatsoever. No question whatsoever. But with the rules of Adventist, and I'm not saying it, Mama, you did a great job. Dad did a great job. With the rules that came with Adventist, sometimes can be taxing on kids, and they're hard to follow. All right? But I'm going to tell y'all a sad story. Some of the most influential people, other than my dad, that has influenced my life still to this day, was not in the church. Some of them was proclaimed to be Christians. Some of them was not proclaimed to be Christians. Good men that was not in the church helped shape my life. The same group of hunters that we went out there and salted their coffee was good men. We didn't have a whole lot growing up, and I remember they would bring their four-wheelers up there during hunting season, and they left them. They said, y'all don't ride them four-wheelers. And they put the keys in them. And what did? We go ride their four-wheelers. And they knew it. And they tell us every time, y'all don't ride them four-wheelers now. But one of them he paid more extra attention to us than others, and he did several young people. He just took interest in young people. But he lived on the coast, and he had a boat down there, and he would take us every summer deep sea fishing. I say deep sea fishing, off the coast. I think we went 14, 15 miles. For me, that was deep sea fishing. It was further than I could swim back. I couldn't see the shore. Once you get out past a few miles, it's all deep sea to me. If your boat goes down and you're not saved, you're dying either way. So it's deep sea. This man shaped who I am today and how I deal with youth to this day. But it didn't come from somebody in the church. Now, I'm not saying anything against anybody in the church, but what I'm saying is, if you don't share the gospel outside of these walls, you're not doing any good. He didn't give me a Bible verse. He gave me a clean way out of this little box I was in. All my friends left the church, but I'm still in the church. And it's because of men outside the church showed me what it's like to share the gospel. We had the same place we're having Mama's Venue there. We weren't completely vegetarian, but we was mostly vegetarian. And they would take us at night to go eat down there. We never got to go out and eat because we were poor folks. I'll just eat at the house. We had some good food at the house too. It was good. But sometimes when you got to go out and eat and you could order whatever you want to, whoo, that was good. That was good. It was clean. It was clean, biblical fun that they give us, a way out that we could get a break to have sustainable living. Now, I'm going to tell you, I got one more little story. I'm going to wrap this up. So it's going to be about 5 to 7 more minutes. I'm going to wrap this up. All right. I told y'all earlier in the week that I've been coaching a mountain bike team. I'm going to make a long story short. Y'all know that I've been gone several weekends, and I continue to do so. Well, the head coach quit, and I wound up, am now the head coach of this mountain bike team. You know, but it's outside of the church. I got 15 kids under me for this year, 15 coaches that are under my guidance. Actually, it'd be 14 coaches under my guidance there. But when you go in as an undercover Christian and you're doing this, these guys all have the same goal in mind as me. We're out there helping the kids, giving them something that they can't have, just that their parents can give them. This is a group of people providing good, clean fun and exercise for the kids. Now, this is on Saturday, so I am in danger here. I'm not a good Adventist. I ain't going to lie. And I might get kicked out of the pulpit. I'm not a good Adventist, because here I am riding my bike with the kids on the Sabbath. This took a lot of men to get this venue ready to go. This is a Saturday afternoon, and we're taking all the kids around, and we're showing them the track, so the next day when they race, there's no dangers that pop up that they didn't know about. Here's another one there. This is our lead medical advisor that takes care of the team. As you can see, it was Sunday was a cold, wet, nasty day. And here the fifth graders, this is what I'm going to talk about, the fifth graders here. See, the fifth graders, this is the team ready to go. But they were riding late in the day, and as the later it got in the day, the more it started to rain and the muddier it got. It just, Hive was under 50 degrees, like 48 degrees with it raining, just absolutely miserable. And this was the kids' first time to race. This is the first time they're old enough, and we've been training them for 3 months now, and the day has finally come. And it couldn't be any more miserable. So here they are, you know. And here's old Colson. He's riding along the finish line. He's happy-go-lucky. It's nothing bothering him. You know, but you can see as he's coming across the finish line the joy that brings. But not everyone had the joy of that. You know, this is a fight to the end where they're learning, you know, they're learning these things of life. This racing might not be roses the whole time. Mud gets thrown in your face. You're cold. You're miserable. But you complete the race. Here's Derek. You can see this is me helping him off the bike. And it's tough for them, you know. They run through this. All this emotions are out of wind, you know, and they have to learn to be able to sustain, to cope with this stuff. This is good, clean stuff. You know, after the race is done, they get together, and now they're talking about their battle scars. Well, I had this happen. Oh, yeah, well, this is what happened to me. Somebody passed me and threw mud up and hit me right in the eye. Did you have that happen? Well, no, I was in front. I didn't have to worry about that. But this one is the one that takes the cake. This is Grayson. It's kind of funny. I rode with the 7th grader, so I didn't ride with him a lot. Rachel rode with him. But he come to our team, and he had some trouble. I mean, just one bad thing after another. One day he wrecked. He run off into a ditch. And
Twice his height.
and so, all right. So he run off in the ditch, and we got to get him out. So we get him out. Everything's okay. Well, the next day, or the next practice, something else bad happens. Same sort of situation. And I'm up there, and, you know, me with my big feet, small mouth, and I'm going to try to get my big foot in my mouth. So I'm talking to him. I said, well, Grayson, I said, you have a good practice? Oh, well, no. Well, I said, well, mountain biking, it's pretty tough. It's not for everybody. No. I said, well, I'm striking out every which way. I said, well, you know, it's tough. It's for tough men. Not everybody can do this. And he goes, yeah. So everything I'm saying is wrong. And I'm thinking, why didn't I just keep my big mouth shut? But this is Grayson, the first day race, crossing the finish line. And it was because of good men out there helping the kids. Good men. Several of them are Adventists on the team, but several of them are not, and we all have the same goal. Is we're helping the kid. We're sharing that gospel undercover. But guess what? You can't cover the gospel up. You do not have to tell people that you're following Jesus for them to see the love of Jesus if you get out there and you actually try to do what Jesus has done. The problem with this method of sharing the gospel is you'll find out there's several others just like you doing the same thing. But they're not trying to tell everybody. They're just doing it because they are a gospel tree. Acts 7:48. Howbeit the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands, saith the prophet. God, He has His church. Jesus has His church. Don't get mistaken on who that church really is. He's in control of it, not man. This time, I'd like to invite Brother Greg up if you want to play the piano. Lynn, would you like to come lead a closing song? I'll let you and Greg kind of work that out on what y'all want to do. Does that sound okay?